Hi guys, and welcome to this week's episode of the In the Hub podcast, brought to you by Playbox Technology UK. Today, I'll be speaking with Matt Lewns, a hugely accomplished broadcast engineer and technical supervisor. Matt's expertise has seen him work with the likes of Formula One, as well as getting involved with projects like the 2012 Olympics and huge live music events. Hope you enjoy this episode. Right, so welcome to the In the Hub podcast, Matt. How are you doing today?
Yeah, very well, thanks. Very well. Glad of the break from decorating.
So just to fill in anyone in, we've just had Easter weekend, haven't we? And that's you were doomed to a weekend of decorating, weren't you, Matt?
I've been doomed to months of decorating.
Is that a new house that you're in, or is it a project?
No. It's the fact that work's been fairly quiet for the last couple of months, and my wife doesn't like to see me sitting around on the sofa, so she keeps me busy.
Yes. I love it. All right. So just before we get started then, Matt, with the kind of main questions that we've got, could you just kind of briefly kind of fill us in on how you got involved in the broadcasting industry?
I probably took a slightly different route to a lot of people. After school, I went to drama school and I worked in the theatre. Tours, worked in the West End for a while, and I very quickly realised it was hard work, long hours, and very little pay. I saw an advert for a trainee camera engineer with a company called Creative Technology, applied, got the job, and just worked my way up from trainee engineer to guaranteeing their OB trucks, and that was kind of my first sort of step into the broadcast world, as opposed to live events, which was what I'd mainly been doing before I started working on the OB.
Yeah, so it wasn't kind of like a grand plan or a kind of dream that you'd been wanting to fulfill since you were 5 or something like that. It was just kind of you happened upon it.
I can't say that I've dreamed of working in television from a young age. Theatre was my first love, and I've got a bit of a sort of historical family connection to the theatre going back to musical days. Whether that had anything to do with it or not, I don't know.
It could well be in the genes, couldn't it?
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah.
Just kind of moving alongside that, what is it about the kind of broadcasting industry and live events that you find so compelling? Why have you chosen that to be your career, and why have you stayed in it?
I enjoy it. It's the main thing. The live events. A lot of what I did was music and big events, and the live side of things. You get one go at it, and you get a buzz. Or I get a buzz out of doing a live show, and doing it well, and that's kind of kept me interested. There's travel, plenty of travel. I've been lucky enough to travel the world, and someone else paid for it. And at the moment, most of my work at the moment is sport. I love sport, so to be paid to watch sport is, I consider myself very lucky.
Yeah, definitely. Just out of curiosity, is there any pressure for you anymore when you kind of work on these live events, or is it just kind of like second nature now?
Yeah, it's second nature now. Doesn't mean I enjoy it any less. I guess I probably enjoy it a little bit more because there's not that pressure, so you feel slightly more relaxed doing it. The people that I've worked with are, I think we're all quite transient. You might work with someone on 3 different jobs in the space of 3 weeks and then not see them for a couple of years. But when you do see them again, you just kind of drop back into the friendship and the relationship you had 2 years ago. And I enjoy that. You're not sitting at a desk looking at the same person day after day, week after week. It keeps it varied and keeps it interesting.
So obviously, Matt, you've worked on your fair share of live events throughout your career. And I just wanted to ask, with all the kind of technological advancements that you have witnessed in your career and throughout your career, Is there any way to kind of foolproof the broadcasting of live events? Because I know so much can go wrong. Has technology, helped in any way to completely foolproof live events and broadcasting?
I don't think you can completely foolproof anything. There are so many points of failure in the chain, and you can only control a certain number of those links. There's always something beyond your control. And the weather, for example, I can't remember, I think it was a game in the Euros or a World Cup where the IBC flooded and there were no pictures coming out of the ground.
God.
Now, there's nothing anyone can do about that. I've worked on jobs where you're taking house power and the house power fails. There are those things. Sabotage was another one. We were doing a job where we had to park in the street and someone didn't like us parking a truck outside their house, and during the event they came outside, opened the power locker and threw the breakers. So you can only control what you can control. Kit has become more reliable these days compared to 30 years ago, so that's less of an issue. You still have backups, whether it's in your signal path, power supplies, generators, so that you have a certain amount of control over that, but I don't think you can ever completely foolproof a broadcast or an event.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there's so many kind of factors working against you, aren't there, and so many external factors. And I can't believe someone, obviously threw the power in that OB truck outside their house.
One of the factors, it was a small venue and we had to park on the road outside the back of the venue, and say someone couldn't park their car outside their house, so they took it out on the power cabinet.
Jesus. So with all these events that you have worked on throughout the years, has there been a kind of particular highlight or highlights for you in your career?
Many events I've enjoyed doing. Oasis at Nebworth in '96 was a big one. I'm a big Oasis fan, so
it's perfect then, isn't it?
That was brilliant, and that happened to coincide with the due date of my first son. But I made it clear to my wife that I was going to be at Nebworth.
What a dilemma! Yeah.
The baby will be late. I'm going to be at Nebworth. Live 8 in 2005 was special, not just because of what the event stood for, but the bands that were playing were the biggest bands around at the time. The Olympics was fabulous. In 2012, I was lucky enough to have a pass for all the venues because I was tech support for the sports presentation service that was provided. So I kind of just set myself up in the middle of London somewhere, and if someone phoned with a problem, I could head off to whichever venue they were. So again, very lucky to see Team GB win lots of golds. That was brilliant. The Bahrain Air Show, the first Bahrain Air Show that we did, was memorable because of the challenges we faced. We were lucky to have a director called Jim Ramsey, who was very patient and very understanding of myself and another engineer, Dean Ruffy. We were using a local truck with local people who didn't always work the same way as we were used to, but we overcame many problems and put on a decent show and went back in subsequent years. So those were the events that kind of stand out in my mind, and not an engineering one, but I was lucky enough to direct the screen mix for the Brits in '97 with Geri Halliwell and her iconic Union Jack dress.
Blimey. So obviously the previous projects that you mentioned, I'm guessing that was more in a kind of engineering sense, and working on those in a kind of engineering sense. So with that, how did the transition happen between engineer to director?
I'd been engineering a tour which got extended, and the director was going off to get married at the end of the tour, so he couldn't finish the tour. So he said, "You've seen the show 36 times. You might as well. You're in a better position than anyone else to direct it," which I did. I did a few other concerts doing iMag mixes, and the Brits in '97 were being organised by a guy called Chris Saunders from a company called Ogle Hog. He's a broadcast and event video specialist, and he's your go-to man if you're doing an event with big screens. And he asked me if I'd do the mix for the Brits in '97, and of course I jumped at the opportunity and was grateful to him for giving me the chance.
And Matt, just on a kind of slightly different topic. Obviously, throughout your career, you've worked on, I don't even want to count how many different events and stuff like that. But what do you think has been the single biggest change in the industry that you've seen throughout your career?
It's difficult to say the single biggest change. Obviously, going digital from analog allowed tapeless recordings and playback, which the number of jobs I've done where you end up, back many years ago, companies would want to ISO every single camera and do a TX record, and you're changing tapes every 90 minutes, and there's an event that goes on all day, and there's a huge box of tapes at the end of the day that you give to the client, and you kind of wonder if they ever get watched, if they just sit on a shelf. Now you can give them a couple of hard drives, and if two people want copies, you record 2 hard drives worth. It's much easier in that respect. The other fantastic advent in the broadcast world for me was Sky Plus. It meant if I'm away on a job for a week, 2 weeks, I can say, I want to record that series, I want to record that film program, and you know that when you come back, when you do have a day off and you want to binge watch something, everything was there. So I think that's they're the kind of the biggest changes, I think.
So moving obviously from what you were primarily working on, which was live events, and I know you've had some experience in the kind of pre-planned and the scheduled side of broadcasting as well. Which do you prefer working on, and do you have any reasons why?
I enjoy both. If you're doing a live event, or if you're doing live, you're making the event. If you're doing broadcast, you're covering the event. There's a subtle difference. If you're doing a show at the O2, the live side of it, you'll probably be sat at the side of the stage or under the stage with your kit, and you're part of the production. Whereas if you're recording that event, you're probably sat in a truck outside somewhere, and you're a little remote from the event that's going on, and I think you miss out on a little bit of the atmosphere.
Yeah,
but
I get that.
You're probably in a more comfortable truck rather than sitting on the edge of a flight case that's air conditioned, as opposed to being freezing cold or boiling hot. You haven't got to necessarily listen to the PA pumping out white noise or pink noise or whatever else they decide to pump out. So there's slight differences. Sometimes being on the broadcast side may be a bit better. Sometimes being on the live event, Glastonbury in the mud is probably horrible when you're part of the live event. Whereas if you're a truck parked up on some trackway or hard standing somewhere, it's probably better to be in the truck in that case.
Yeah, no, it definitely seems like there's merits to both, isn't there? And it's something that with the live events you can't easily kind of make up that atmosphere, and what happens during those events. So yeah, I completely agree with you on that. So Matt, this is a question that we ask at the end of every podcast, and it's just, if you could sum it up in one word, what do you envision for the future of the broadcasting industry? I know it's quite a tough one. So
In one word, I think it's delivery. I think the
delivery.
way pictures are going to be delivered in the future will be the the change. Most live broadcasts on television won't change. People want to sit down and they want to watch a whole event, whether it's football match, Formula One race, cricket match, whatever. But I think more footage will be viewed on a tablet or a mobile phone, shorter clips through social media, rather than someone might get a notification on their phone and it says so and so a goal's been scored in this match, and you can watch the 20 seconds of that goal being scored, or a wicket being taken in a cricket match, or a brilliant hole-in-one at a golf event, something like that. So I think that's how content will be viewed going forward, and so I think the delivery of broadcast pictures is where the major change will come.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And I've been reading a lot about it recently. And it's just how kind of bulletproof the live broadcasts are for the people who obviously want to watch the entire thing live. But then just how that's being segmented into, like you said, we've had highlights and stuff like that and match of the day for many years now. But the way that's distributed as well through social media and stuff like that, I think we'll be seeing some rapid change in that. So I completely agree.
Feeds that go out on social media, people want different footage, different camera angles, different views to what is being pumped out in the live broadcast. And so I think there's scope for more cameras at events.
Actually, yeah, no, definitely.
Which will feed purely social media, feed into the social media side of things rather than the broadcast.
And behind the scenes as well, that's, not that I thought it was going to go anywhere, it was ever going to go away. But, there's still a lot of interest in behind the scenes footage as well. And like you said, different angles, off the record type stuff, which I find quite interesting. Because people will still go out of their way to go and find that content about productions they care about. But yeah, I just find that interesting.
I think you're right. It kind of demystifies broadcast.
Yeah, definitely.
I think a lot of people will quite happily sit and watch live events on the television, and some will just watch it, consume it, and enjoy it and go away and
yeah, that's
thoroughly enjoy that. Other people will sit there and go, I wonder how they did that.
Yeah.
And I think most people would probably be surprised at the scale of production that is.
Yeah.
The number of engineers involved in the camera side of things, VT, production, from runners all the way down to directors, the number of people and what their individual jobs are and how they all come together to work as a team to produce a broadcast. Sorry about that. I know.
Right, mate. Go ahead. So just to finish on then, Matt, are there any exciting projects that you've got in the pipeline that you can talk to us about?
Not really. The summer is getting busier, and it's going to be a summer of sport again, which is mainly Formula One, golf, cricket, couple of matches at the Euros coming up. The other thing I'd like to kind of add would be about the live events industry and the past 12 months, how much everyone has suffered. It's a massive industry, over 1 million people work in it. It brings billions into the UK economy, and it's not just lighting, sound, video, people like that. There's staging, tracking, security, catering, hotels. The recent negotiations with the EU are going to make it very difficult for people in the UK to tour Europe these days. and it's just an event where the UK is a world leader, and it's suffered massively in the last 12 months, and everyone needs to do what they can do to support those events when they come back. If it's a band playing at your local pub, or whether it's Taylor Swift playing at Glastonbury, everyone needs live events to happen. So for the industry, for the UK, it's very important, and it's just a shout out really to those guys that have had no work for the last 12 months. They need the support from people that are able to give that support.
Yeah, I know of there's some brilliant kind of charities and organisations out there that are helping to fund these people and fund projects and stuff like that during this time. And it was just a relief to hear that you've got sporting projects lined up and stuff like that, because it's so often last year we were hearing it's looking a bit desolate for the next few months and stuff like that, so different to the previous years. So it's just a relief to kind of hear that some normal is coming back, really, and we're getting some of those events like the Euros and Formula One and stuff back to normal.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of organisations like the FIA for motor racing, the ECB for cricket, the Premier League for football, who worked phenomenally hard to get those events on. Obviously, there's the financial implications of not staging them, which was probably quite a driving force. But the position of the infrastructure that they put in place to enable crews to turn up and be tested, to work in a safe environment, and to be able to bring those the pictures to the people that weren't able to go out was I think was very important. And so production companies and the sporting federations worked very hard and did a fantastic job to get sport back on television from about June of last year. In a very short period of time, they really pulled the stops out and did a fantastic job.
Yeah, no, some fantastic work, and I really just can't wait for this summer, and I hope everything just gets straight back to normal then. So Matt, if anyone wants to get in touch with you, how can they best do that?
Email mlewns@icloud.com. It's probably the best.
And you're over on LinkedIn as well?
I am on LinkedIn as well, yeah. So hit me up on that if you want to.
But I suspect if people will know about you, basically, if they need these really good live event work and stuff like that and engineering, they'll already probably know your name, won't
they? Hopefully there's a few of us that do the rounds, and hopefully people think well of us.
Yeah, oh, definitely. Yeah, so thank you very much, Matt, for coming on and talking to us today. It's much appreciated, and it's been a bit of a learning experience for me as well, just to hear about the kind of goings on.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt.
Cool. Cheers, Neil.